Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, you have the first of two series updates. Instead of doing it how I did it last year and actually holding up the books for all of the various series, because that would involve quite the disassembly of my library and plenty of holes at the library for books that I don't have, I'm going to go through the tabs that I have on my reading log tracker online and talk about all of my various updates and compare to last year's video and talk briefly about what's coming up next. Although I think that part is actually in part 2 of this recording. So let's jump to the screen recording. All right, so the first thing that you see are the series that I completed in 2023. It's a significant number. It is, let's see, let's count this here, 22 series, if I count that correctly, 24 minus 2. It's not too bad. I finished a lot of series. I did try to make it an effort for that. Now, you do see 2 books here, or 2 series here that I am counting in this section, but they're not quite complete. One of them is because this third book here, I should actually mark that I own this one. That's what that darker color means. The Once Upon a Broken Heart series, the third book is on my Goodreads Choice Awards project. It's on the one for young adult fantasy. I am going to be reading it shortly within the next few days, so it will be completed. And instead of having to try to rearrange it later, I just went ahead and put it there. The other one is the Skyward series. I have Defiant, and I plan to read it this month. So again, I already have it up there. I plan to finish it. So it is basically finished because I have a thing about to-do lists. If I set them, I follow them. So those are all the series that I have finished. Potentially 24 series this year, provided that I follow through on this. Then we have the series that I DNF'd. And one thing that you will notice about these series up until, let's see here. These are all series that I had started pre-BookTube and my attempt to finish series. And I have several of these books physically. Went ahead, like I had gone through Goodreads, any series, first book in series that I'd rated 4 or above, I went ahead and purchased. But actually, hold on, there's a couple, I realize they're not completely in order. So let's see, The Fifth Wave, Mortal Instruments, Rondo, Ansi Bonanno. So it's actually just these. This one right here. I started these years ago, rated them 4 stars or higher, but when I kept thinking about picking them up and potentially finishing them, nothing in me really wanted to finish them. And tastes change over the years, so I decided to go ahead and DNF them. The rest of them are ones that I either started last year, started Wheel of Time last year, talked about how I decided to DNF that series, or started them this year. So this Nubia the Awakening is a book that I had as an audio arc from Libro. Mindwalker was a Goldsboro book. I enjoyed it, but I don't feel compelled to pick up the sequel, which is more of a companion. Stowaway was one that I considered continuing in. It was one of the SCASL books. And then I said, I don't really feel like finishing this series. Caraval, that was a disappointment. That was one of my 23 and 23 books. This was unexpectedly a series that I read book 7 of accidentally as an arc. I'm not going to be continuing. All of Us Villains was a book that I read for SCASLs on the young adult list. The Warring Gods, that was The Sun and the Void. Not continuing on with that series. This one as well, The Curse of Saints, that was a Fairy Loot book. Warring Gods was Illumicrate, Fairy Loot Adult. This was that Self-Same Metal. It was an arc that I had. It was fine. Not continuing on the series. This is Fourth Wing. No. Songs of Penelope, I did not realize when I read Ithaca, which was one of my Aardvark books, that it was a series. It's a series of retellings. I don't know how closely they're related. I'm not interested in reading any more of these. The Nightshade Kingdom is actually the Foxglove King series that I read. It's romantasy. Not super into that, so I'm not going to be continuing that series. So several of these were either SCASL or BookBox books. That is going to be a theme for a later section. So these are the books, the series that I have not finished. I started before watching and starting BookTube, and they are fully published. I think I have all of these series on my series shelf in my TBR closet. So these are ones that I could definitely actually finish. So Truly Devious, I'm not quite sure what section I should put it in because the original trilogy is fully published. I don't know how many more of those follow-on books that she intends to publish. That's why that's not checked there. These are series that are fully published that I started my first year and a half on BookTube. That is The Shadow of the Fox, Winter Night Trilogy, and The Inheritance Games. There's not as many of those. As far as book series that I started this year, the number of series that I started this year is pretty big. I had 10 that I intentionally started, but I started a lot more. Thankfully, the ones that I started that are fully published, not that long of a list. So these are all fully published, and yes, I am correcting things as I go. So we have the David Bode trilogy. That was, so of the 10 that I specifically wanted to start in 2023, we have the David Bode trilogy, we have Winnowing Flame, we have Greenbone Saga, Rook and the Rose. Those were all ones that I started in 2023 and they are fully published. Technically, I should also have the Licanius trilogy on here, and I'm not sure where I put that. And also The Faithful and the Fallen. So I'll edit that in a little bit, but those are 2 other series that are fully published that I started this year that should go up here. Thankfully, that's not that long of a list. Then we get to books that are not fully published, hence ongoing, that I started over, not this year, but since BookTube. And this is a pretty long section. So we have Keeper of the Lost Cities. I started this because book 9 was on the Goodreads Choice Awards list last year. Nevermore, I just really wanted to read that one last year. A lot of these are BookBox books. So this one, so Blood Scion, Dark Talents trilogy, those are both BookBox books. Sunbearer was, I think, an SCASL book. No, this one I had an ARC of. This was a BookBox book, but I did not get it as a BookBox. I believe it was on Goodreads Project. Again, this was also on Goodreads. This was SCASL. This I just wanted to read. This was BookBox, Goodreads. Most of these were one of the 2. So we have several series here. Most of them were started because of BookBox subscriptions. So next we have all of the series that I started this year that are incomplete, as in they are still being published. So let's see, it starts at 115 and goes all the way to 152. Let me do some quick math here. That's 37. Most of these were because of subscription. Let's see here. 20 of those are because of BookBox books. I started a lot of series this year, but the thing that I am most proud about is this section right here, what I have chosen to DNF, because several of these were also BookBox books, and I didn't make it an obligation for myself to continue on in it just because I started the series. That's a significant number of series that I have DNF'd this year. Now, obviously, this spreadsheet needs a little bit more tweaking and updating, and I need to get a little bit better at following through with my series, because a lot of those that I start because of BookBoxes, I don't necessarily pay attention to when the sequels come out and put them on my TBR and get around to reading them. Hopefully, as I further refine this spreadsheet, I'll do a little bit better about keeping up with series and completing series and being able to move a whole lot more of them up into the completed section. Next year, I will add another section to this that will say completed in 2024. Obviously, I have not got around to making my spreadsheet for 2024, but we will get there soon. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.